Welcome to Production Resources Incorporated Learning Center video series. In this video, we will be programming a yellow sensor. A yellow sensor is a static sensor event type, and it is normally open to ground. If yellow sensors change condition and closes to ground, a fault will be generated. The yellow sensor static events are typically monitored for the entire stroke, 360 degrees. To program a yellow sensor, we first must turn our program run key to the program position so the main program menu is displayed. We will be selecting the Tool Manager soft key. Select the Tool Manager soft key on the screen. In our example, we are creating a new tool number to program our yellow sensor. Select the new tool from the soft keys located on the right side of the screen. We will now input our tool number we are creating. Our tool number we're creating is tool number 4656 Alpha. We'll now input the tool number we are creating. To program our tool number, be sure it is highlighted in green and select the Edit soft key located on the right-hand side of the screen. You'll notice that SmartPAC Pro is a menu-driven program that will guide you through the programming process page by page. We will now select the die protection key, and a list of sensor inputs available to program will appear. In our application, our yellow sensor is connected to sensor input 1. So we would choose sensor 1 to program a yellow sensor. A list of common sensor names will be displayed. If the sensor application you are monitoring is not listed in the canned list of names, you can create a custom sensor name by selecting the New Entry button located on the right-hand side of the screen. In our example, we will name this sensor a material buckle, which is a common sensor application for a yellow sensor. The material buckle sensor is normally open. If the material were to buckle and change the state of the yellow sensor from open to close, SmartPAC will generate a fault and stop the press. We'll now select yellow for our sensor type. We now must determine how we want the press to stop when a material buckle fault is detected. Emergency stop will generate an immediate stop command once the sensor fault is detected. As we discussed earlier, static events, yellow sensors, are constantly monitored, so the e-stop command can be generated anywhere during the press cycle. Emergency stop is typically selected when the sensor fault being monitored could cause die damage when the fault is detected. Another selection type is top stop. When selecting top stop, the press will stop at the top of the stroke after the fault is detected. Smart stop, which is the third stop type, is a combination of emergency stop and top stop. Which stop type generated is determined by the programmed critical angle for a particular tool. Critical angle is the latest degree angle in the stroke where an emergency stop command can be generated, and the RAM will stop prior to punch engagement. In our application, we have determined that the tool has a critical angle of 100 degrees. If a sensor fault is generated anywhere between 185 degrees of press angle and 100 degrees of our critical angle, an emergency stop will be generated. If the sensor faults between 100 degrees and 185 degrees, a top stop command will be generated. For our application, we have left it in the e-stop position. In most instances, the programming of our yellow sensor will now be complete. SmartPAC does offer additional features that may be used for certain yellow sensor applications. By definition, yellow sensors are static events that are monitored for the entire press cycle and will generate a fault anytime the sensor changes state. There may be instances when conditions outside of our control cause the yellow sensor to change state and create nuisance faults. A bypass angle, if due to the placement of a sensor in the environment, the yellow sensor is prone to actuating during a portion of the stroke that is not a result of the event that we are monitoring, we can program a bypass angle to ignore the sensor input. To program a sensor bypass, press the Add button next to the bypass angle and program the degree angles that you want to ignore the sensor. In our example, we have programmed a sensor bypass angle from 165 degrees to 185 degrees. Sensor actuations during the bypass angle 165 to 185 will be ignored. Sensor actuations during the portion of the stroke highlighted in yellow will continue to generate faults. The minimum actuation time is the time in milliseconds that a yellow sensor can change state from open to close, and SmartPAC will ignore the change. If we set the minimum actuation time to 10 milliseconds, SmartPAC will ignore any single sensor actuation change that is less than 10 milliseconds. Any actuation changes longer than 10 milliseconds will generate a sensor fault. On an auto reset, when auto reset is turned on, fault not required, the yellow sensor fault will automatically be cleared on the SmartPAC if the yellow sensor output status reverts back to the normally open position. If auto reset is turned off, a manual reset on the SmartPAC is required to reset the sensor fault, even if the sensor reverts back to its open condition. Auto reset off is the default setting. Auto reset on with fault required. When selected, the yellow sensor must change state from normally open to normally closed and then back to open. This status must occur during the active angle region programmed for that sensor. So with an auto reset on fault required, we need to add an active angle. The active angle is the window on when we expect that sensor to change state, and it must change state, go from open to closed and back to open during this ready window. If the sensor is not back to the open position or does not change state by the end of the window, a fault will be given. That is the end of our programming of the yellow sensor. In our actuation, we are going to have it shut as a regular yellow sensor, material buckle, yellow normally open, and an e-stop. We have not used any of the additional features required or offered. I'd like to thank you for your time, and we do encourage you to visit the Production Resources Incorporated Learning Center for additional training videos and application knowledge. Thank you for your time.